Okay, welcome to the Microsoft EMS Community podcast, episode 13. And today we have a new guest. We have Venkata, and we of course have Niklas here. And welcome, Venkata, to the
Hey,
podcast.
thank you, Jonas. Thank you, Nicholas. Thanks for having me on the channel. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to this one because it's always not it's always fun, of course, but it's always interesting to get people from the back office that we always all of us are like working with. I'm an MVP, and Niklas is a student ambassador, and we work with these products every day in our time. And you have been one of the guys that many of us probably know in the back, and you pop up once a while, and every time you pop up, you are here to talk about Intune, and you've been doing some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, first off, it's great. I think one of the things that works out very well here is the community and how well the community is, especially MVPs and everybody who kind of contribute to the project. This is not that, right? Like even the customer connections and the feedback we get to. So I'm always very excited to find opportunities to come and talk. I used to always shy away. Don't get me wrong. And like 4 or 5 years ago, I got the taste of it and realized, okay, it's very important to stay connected, and I always take away something new from the discussion. So thanks for having me again, and excited to learn some new stuff.
Yeah, and it's one of the best things that I think all of this community stuff is that we can actually just sit down and have a chat about stuff and technical things and go into to be a little bit of a nerd sometimes, which is fun. So Venkata, I've heard that you like Formula One. So I'm from Denmark, and Niklas is from Denmark as well. And do you know Kevin Magnussen?
Yes, of course.
Cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
so
yeah, I mean, except yeah, he's one of the 5G drivers. So yes, I do.
and
Who
I've
is your
seen
favorite
us.
driver?
Sorry,
Who is your favorite driver?
I mean, my favorite driver retired, like Sebastian Vettel. As
Oh
was,
yeah.
I mean, growing up, it's Michael. Right? Like, so it was a natural progression to like Sebastian. But yes, he's retired probably. Now Max is great. Charles probably Lewis, but yes, now it's actually much more fun once you don't have a favorite driver because you kind of enjoy the sport much more. Uh, but yes, uh, me and my brother used to watch Formula One quite a bit when we were young, and kind of fell off when it was kind of going through schools and whatnot, and kind of picked it back up. So fun memories. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it still the best of the rest, or is it more like a even pack now with the cars, or do we still have Red Bull
Yeah,
in the front and Mercedes and
the second half of last year was fun, much more fun. So if that's how it's going to be, this year is the season to be it, right? Like it should be more exciting to watch. So I'm hoping the momentum continues and everybody is much more closer. I mean, Max was on a league of his own the last 4 years. So last year was a little bit closer than expected. So I'm hoping it's much more fun this year.
yeah, we also have Lewis Hamilton in Ferrari right now. I saw a
Yeah,
video on YouTube with
yeah.
Enzo. He was in the house with Enzo and Ferrari and trying the cars, and yeah.
Yeah, Lewis and Red is something not expected, I would say, in the lifetime, but that's probably one of the exciting things that has happened, which is outside of racing in the last couple of years. So very excited to see how that all pans out.
Great, great, great. So, the first thing we're going to go into is your own personal journey about. So, what motivated you to go into IT, Venkata?
Um,
It's a hard question, direct question, I know, but
no, I always try to think back, right? Like I think it was a natural intrigue on distributed systems, I would say, right? Like I think growing up, I've gotten a chance to at least got exposed to a computer. Like it was in school, there was one at home, and the first thing I think it coded was in Logo. If anybody even remembers that language, where you give the instructions, and it was much more interesting than a TV set, right? Like in
Okay.
TV set, I would go and watch stuff. Here, you could do something, and you could see something change. And
Interactive. Okay.
yeah, it was like 7 maybe, or in that. I vividly remember writing something which the teacher told, and once we ended up finishing the instruction, it was like a star that got true, right? Like that. I was like, wow, this is super exciting. Now, I I know it kind of started that way, but eventually I realized there is also games you could play on a computer, and then I got hooked for a long time. So it was always okay. Um, it's the love towards computers that kind of kept me learning more and more about it. And I did end up um, doing my master's after my bachelor's, and the things that was much more intriguing for me back in the day was distributed systems, um, and cloud was just getting started, or at least the concepts. So that kind of motivated me to kind of get into distributed systems and whatnot. Eventually got latched onto security, right? So this intersection is what I found in device management, where you get to build highly scalable services, and you get to worry about uh, device security, posture, and making better productivity for users. So that it was not something I planned for, but as soon as I got the taste of things, it got me hooked, and been there ever since for the past 15 years.
Yeah, because I can see that you've been a web developer, and I myself personally also been a web developer back in the days doing coding. And yeah, I've been a gamer for my whole life. Still games today. Still play games today on my computer. So I see that there is some kind of what is the English word? I always forget them sometimes. Um,
Similarity, yeah, yeah,
Similarity, yes, exactly. So I could imagine, do you have like you're a developer and you do the coding and the web development, and then you all probably see that you can do some architecturing with Intune and the back end, and did it go that direction, or was
yeah. I
that
mean,
like
yeah. So I did start writing. I think when I was in school, I keep saying school, but this was in at the university. I had a chance to work on climatic modeling, and we used to write uh, scripts to kind of simulate all the models, and eventually places in a website. That's probably where it kind of started, writing the web pages. Yes, I did write quite a bit of UX when I started in Tune, but um, it's just not the UX to get it working. You still need to connect to the API and the backend. So gotten chance to kind of work on different pieces of Intune. And like I said, 15 years was a long time, and you get to at least got exposed to working on lot more pieces that are related to
I,
Intune.
I have to ask a question because I kind of have this feeling like every gamer has been running some kind of game server before. Did you run any game server or build any scripts or anything with your programming knowledge back then as a young guy?
I mean, I think the one of the games I've written was not any graphic based games, but this was like a stock exchange game that we did in school, where this was kind of from a concurrent programming course where you should be able to write systems that are scalable when multiple people are using it. So that was always a fun game because everybody wrote the game. It's almost the same game, and everybody else got to try to break it, right? Like so it was, we kind of simulated a stock exchange in school. So that was one of the games I probably finished. Yeah, I've attempted a lot more, but yeah, that's the one I have in my memory, which I could say, okay, it was kind of like a game that I finished.
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah, it is. And we've been there now for like 15 years now at Microsoft.
Yes, actually, as of Feb 15th last week. So yes,
Yeah, so congratulations.
no, thank you.
And how has that been?
No, it's been a journey, and like I said, most of that time, if not all the time, is been on device management and security space. Now, granted, I've done quite differently or new things over the years. Um, and I know you were talking about the web part in the beginning. Yes, there are definitely a bunch of UX pieces in the mix. Um, but I did get a chance to work on mobile devices when it's kind of started, right? So I was an intern in a product called Service Manager. And I don't know if anybody remembers it. But I did come back and start in Config Manager. Not many know. But I was working on mobile devices quite early on, right? Like this was Windows Phone and or Windows Mobile and BlackBerry and all the other stuff, which kind of always had this cloud component to it because the device kept roaming, right? Like unless your desktops. So very quickly, kind of started almost at the beginning of Intune, and I think the first feature I've contributed to the code heavily and been in that team for years is enrollment. So if the
Okay.
first piece, and especially on the Windows side, the collaborating with Enter on the AD join and getting the actual enrollment happening, and that's the space I worked for a long time. Kind of expanded to device check-ins, right? Look, bunch of core platform services, right? And over the time, from a feature perspective, because most of the time when I talk about services, probably nobody would recognize. Um, the features perspective, I did get a chance to work on co-management for enrollment, probably the enrollment restrictions and hardening. I do gotten a chance to contribute to some of the other ring zero spaces like targeting and check-in, especially modernizing the protocols. Right, like we used to call something like OMA which was very much designed for Windows mobile platforms. So as desktops got much more powerful, obviously they are, and we had to change on protocols and how we manage those machines. So that's another area. I did get a chance to work with my partner teams like Windows 365, video integration, Enter on the AD join, Defender team on things like MD attach and whatnot. So, like I said, it's been a journey, and it's definitely not as colorful in terms of doing different kinds of things. Uh, but in device management, I did get a chance to do a lot more different kinds of things. So it's not like I've done gaming and Office and Outlook, um, but I did spend quite a bit of time in the space, and I love the space.
Okay.
How did you start at Microsoft? Was it as an intern or was it?
Yes, yes. I went to school at University of Florida. It was sunny. I grew up in India, so it was all sunny. So when in 2009 I got an opportunity to be an intern, and I was an intern in service system center service manager back in the day. Um, yes, Seattle was beautiful, especially in summer. So I keep always saying that, okay, you all tricked me with the weather because summer was way beautiful. It was much hotter than Florida and India. uh, but yes, I was an intern, and then I joined back after finishing my graduation in 2010 as a full time. And I came in February, and nobody warned me enough with the rain. uh, but I like it. I like it, Seattle. No, yeah.
We get used to it, I could imagine. In Denmark, it's also rainy all the time. It's
Right.
either very sunny, very rainy, and dark weather. That's how it is.
Yeah, that's just 300 days a year or something like that.
It is. It is.
Yeah. I think 2 years ago I got a chance to visit few. I didn't get to Denmark, but I did go to Europe and got a chance to visit a couple of countries. Whenever I was in Netherlands, I think it was raining. Max won that day.
Yeah.
That was fun to enter and see the whole Orange Army. But yes, it was raining. It was a good race though because of the rain.
And I think the next race in Formula One is gonna be in Australia, so that's also a rainy place. I think it's in March. Just FYI. Yeah.
Yep, looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have like a little bit of an interesting question. Do you remember your first day at Microsoft? Like you showed up, you got your badge, like the experience
Yes.
around that.
Yes. I mean, the first experience obviously was interview, and it was a funny experience because when I
Did
flew, um, I did not know. I mean, I had one at my campus, and they were talking about it, and they told me, "Yeah, you're leaving next week, and you're gonna fly." So it was I wasn't preparing enough, and the only thing I did was in the flight over,
oh
which
yeah,
was a long journey, so that was helpful. Um, but the funny incident was, I think I showed up dressed up, and I had a blazer on and whatnot, and everybody was like much more casual. Uh, so everybody could tell I was the new I was here to give the interview, and one of the interviews rounds were having a lunch, right? And that's not really an interview, but you still they tend to know you. And yeah, I think I had a burger or something, and I had it in my mouth, and they asked those questions. So that was a fun experience that I had to take back. Um, the the experience when I do had the badge was interesting, and there is often somebody. I think Microsoft nurtures a lot of care, and which I appreciated over the years. So there was somebody who received and kind of showed you desk and kind of showed things around. Um, but interestingly, the thing I remember vividly was, okay, you have a brand new machine waiting. This is
yeah.
back in the day. We had like big desktops waiting, and you got to
Did you,
go do your own setup, right?
did you get a
And,
Windows Phone?
and yeah, I mean, I don't think Windows Phone was a thing in
Oh no, okay,
2010,
yeah,
right? Like, but
yeah,
this was
true.
back to Windows machines, and I did. So that was a fun experience. It was like, okay, is anybody going to show me this? Right, like, but there were people always around, so that I was very hesitant to ask, and it's much of an introvert, so it was very hard for me to ask around. But people around noticed enough that they would come over and help you, which I said is pretty. I wouldn't say it's unique, but it kind of stands out on how much care they show here at Microsoft.
I could imagine like sitting at the lunch. Like I've been doing that before as well. Like you have a conversation with people you just met, you sit down and have a lunch, you eat some good dinner, and then you take a bite, and then a question comes up, and you're like, you don't want to take the next bite. You're gonna wait for the other people to take the bite. So you're like, that you're eating at the same time the people you're actually talking with, like in a set, and also in a setting with a new job and stuff. It's
Yeah,
already something you have like you get a little bit nervous and stuff, and yeah, I remember that back then as well.
yeah.
So
See, that's clever. I wish somebody told me that. No, you're right. Though. Eventually, you'll figure that out in terms of because, like I said, at some point you got to synchronize your talking. But yes, it, it was
it
fun.
worked out.
Yeah,
15 years now.
it definitely worked out, right? And
Yeah, it's cool.
So,
And where do you actually live today, Venkata?
I live in Redmond, so it's pretty
Yeah.
close by. I live fairly close by, because for me and my wife, commute was an important thing, and so we kind of traded off on being in a big place versus in a normal place. But it's for us, commute was a very important thing, and getting to point A to point B, especially from work to home, was pretty short for me. So I'm not trying to trade that ever. uh, and I do tend to uh, see people quite often, so I tend to go to work, and I enjoy uh, discussions, especially brainstorming sessions. It's easier to do it on a whiteboard, and over the time, obviously, that changed, especially with the hybrid setup. It's fairly easy with the new touchscreens and whatnot. So Teams does a fantastic job on that perspective. So I don't miss the whiteboarding, but I do miss seeing people. So I tend to drive in every now and then.
how
I
often
think
are you
Nicholas,
at
you feel this.
the
Yeah.
how often are you at the Microsoft office?
Unless something comes up, like for example, this one, I like it'll be hard to do this at the office because there is often
Uh,
somebody to run into. Otherwise, I tend to go as much as I can. So
yeah,
at
cool.
least 4 to 5 days a week.
So Jonas get a chance to meet you at the MVP summit then.
Oh, nice! Yeah, I can't wait. That's something I've been looking forward to. Especially miss the MVP sync we had this month. I was just coming back from a vacation, and I was like, okay, I know the next one is coming, and this is the big one, and everybody's gonna fly. Yes, I'll definitely say hi, Jonas, and we should catch up.
We should. We should. Yeah, it's gonna be my second time,
Nice.
and I already have like my flight is gonna has been changed like 3 times because I booked my flights like a half a year ago, like 6 months ago.
I see. I see. Oh, the airline changed it? Or
Yeah, the airline changed it like 2 times or 3 times. Yeah,
I see. I see.
yeah. So it's gonna be a good flight. I think hopefully gonna be good weather as well. And if it don't, I'm gonna blame you, Venkata.
I mean, it's definitely better. At least the weather is much brighter, so you should be fine.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
last
we
time I
had,
was there,
we
I
had
was so sick. By the way,
sorry?
yeah. Last year I was so sick.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see. I
yeah,
see.
yeah.
That's unfortunate, but hopefully not this time, and you get to do all the things you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, we can catch up. And what should I bring when I see you for the first time in person? Should I have water with me? Should I have a beer? Should I have tea? Should I have coffee? Where are we at?
I'll just get any ideas that we could chat on, and let's hang out.
Okay.
Like anything works. Like it's the conversation that's much more important than the drink at hand. And
Yeah,
and
true.
of course the drink really depends on the conversation too. But you get the idea.
I do. That's cool. That's cool. And talking about community events, because I've seen a podcast with you as well on the Workplace Ninja podcast, which you did good. And by the way, if I can say it, you had a big beard back then, and now it's gone.
Yes, yes, I did shave my beard fairly recently, but yes, it, yeah, it was just a coincidence. I did shave, and my kids started to kiss me more. I was like, okay,
Okay. Love. We like the love.
yes, yes, but yes,
Yeah.
I do like my beard, so it'll probably come back at some point. But yes,
Whatever looks you have, it looks good. Beard or not. Beard or not.
oh,
Yeah.
you're too kind. I appreciate it, but yes.
And so, talking about the community events, you've been working with Ninja, and so has been the most rewarding part of getting involved in the community? I know you talked a little bit about the feedback and the MVPs, and is there something more you like about it? Contact with people, or
No, 100%. I think the first time, um, something I took away very vividly, was the new perspective, because you tend to think about a feature and you kind of design in a certain way, right? Like you kind of build a solution. And what always stumped me was there is always a unique situation for a customer, or an MVP that they're trying to help a customer. And that's something we have not seen or thought, it can be used that way, or okay, it's not enough and we got to go adjust and tweak. So yeah, I know I've touched on feedback, but that's still something, that's unique, because I had the least expectation. I was like, okay, I was like, okay, how am I going to be helpful was always a thing, and I was always preparing. How can I help the community? But it's the other way around. I've learned a lot more from the community, and I still continue to do so. So that's something much more exciting. And of course, the connections is good, because you it's not a one-time feedback loop, right? Like these events are great, but this happens only a few times a year, and not every time you get to connect in person. So having this connection is much more valuable, right? Like I remember having a conversation with Nicholas and MMS, and here we are. We had some conversations even after, right? Like that's much more valuable, and especially making sure that you all have a line to reach us, and vice versa, is often valuable. And gotten a chance to work closely with few of the MVPs to find new issues. That is something pretty exciting. Like I said, you think you've covered all your things, and you get stumped every now and then. That's much more fun. Um, the other thing I would say is not just feedback. We have taken ideas, um, or feedbacks, and made the adjustment and brought it back in the product. And next time when we demoed that that was much rewarding and fulfilling experience. And I tend to go back, take it back to the team to kind of show them how much of their work is appreciated. Inventory was really that byproduct, right? Like it was, I mean, it's not like we did not know we need to improve our inventory feature, but it's like once you talk to the people and understand how important that is or how much valuable that is, it kind of pushes, it gives enough boost to kind of go and it kind of move the pieces. So yeah, this is really a I think we were at a food court in Sangi, and Sangi was asking, okay, what it takes that to get this built, and we were just discussing ideas in the event, and then
Okay.
taking that back and working with or having a team rallying to build that was always fascinating. So
Yeah. So the time we met at MMS, it was actually your first time speaking, right? At
oh
the
yeah,
community event.
yeah. That was a fun experience. I mean, I've been there already for like that was my third time or fourth time. I don't remember, but I always avoided speaking. Right, like I've spoken in a lot of one-on-one conversation or a smaller group conversations, especially at the tent and whatnot. Always avoided speaking at places. Matt definitely pushed me in a good way, and I've gotten. It was much more fun than I thought. And yes, I was fairly nervous, and Nicholas caught me when I was pacing around back and forth.
You did it very well at your first time speaking. That was good to see. And I think I haven't seen that many people in one room before, and
Yeah,
I could imagine your nerves are.
yeah, because you're right, and that's I think Intune fundamentals, and which I think I might talk again in the MVP summit next month. Um, and did not expect that much of a reception, and I think we got booked out twice. And yes, that was nerve wracking a little bit, but it was the other thing against this events. I enjoy the high bandwidth conversations. Like people there are equally, if not they from experience wise, much more knowledgeable, right? Like so, it was a good conversation, right? It's just not like I mean, yes, we did start it as a session, but it was much more interactive. I think that's what put me at ease. It's like okay, I understand what's happening, and there is a reception right after on what I was speaking to. So that was much more engaging and fairly unique, I would say. But yeah.
How did you think he did, Nicholas, on his big
I think
event?
he did very well. I could see he was a little bit nervous at first, but I think once you just got started, it's yeah. I mean, when I can say that because Venkata can hear it, but he's very not knowledgeable. So I mean, for him when he's speaking, I think it's easier for him to actually speak, but he will always have the nerves. So like when you have all your facts and knowledge in order, I think it's much easier for people to speak about things like you do, Venkata, as an example. Um, or at least that was what it looked like, at least.
No, I appreciate it. But that's the thing. Like I said, once it got um, on the topic and the
Yeah.
space, it was definitely much more comfortable. But yes, in the beginning, it was like, okay, what do I say?
Yeah.
Even though we had the content and everything, and it's often, you know, eh, streamlining your thoughts is the
Mm.
key thing, right? Because you have that small amount of time. Yeah, how much to talk, how to fine tune for that audience at that time. That's the tricky part. So
I have one fun question because it was your first time speaking. How is it to get a question about a thing that you can't talk about in such a big room, and then what are you thinking that you need to answer on?
uh, the single most reason of the nervousness was primarily that, right? Obviously, outside of looking at that big audience and figuring out how do I say it and how
So
do I
many
not
brains in one place.
right, like yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, right. Like it was like what if they ask a question which I have no clue about, right?
Yeah. Know the
But
feeling.
yes, yeah, I was definitely thinking twice and thrice on whatever I say, because I do get a chance to work on new things, and
Yeah.
that's probably most of my time, because we are always looking what's coming ahead. I mean, it's not like it's secret or anything, obviously, because sometimes you don't know how the end product is going to look like. So there is always a process, and um, but yes, that's why I always partner with our PMs to keep me in check, who are fantastic. Um, but yes, I that is something that constantly going in my mind. So I was replaying what I was saying constantly, so that I don't say something I shouldn't.
Yeah, and I think you and Matt did it well. I think it was good for you that Matt was there as well, so he could,
Oh
say,
yeah,
yeah,
it's
I will just give a PM answer, and then you can just be the staying
yeah,
in the call.
that was my go-to. If it went to a certain degree, I was like, Matt. But yes, it was fun presenting
Yeah,
with that. I always
yeah.
he was the one who kind of dropped the ball. Hey, dude, like, yeah, I put your name, so go be prepared.
I could also like see that if you're sitting with the code, you're thinking about scaling up like big environments, like all these customers we have in Microsoft, that you guys have in Microsoft, and my own customers, and you're the ones actually sitting in the back end doing the coding. And when you're in like an event, you have like a one specific use case. You got to put that one into like some kind of scalness, or what I want to call it, scalability. And that could also be something that could disturb a little bit about the scale, and because you go in one direction, one specific direction, which then forgets about the scalability, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely, and that's a great question, by the way. Right, like I so the solutions sometimes are definitely much more tailored to that particular customer. So I keep saying that's 80-20 rule, right? Like 80% of that solution is much more generic for everybody else. Like if you take even inventory, collection of inventory, and how do you customize, that's a fairly common problem for everybody else. Like what you use the data bit, right? Like whether you want to use this particular field, to extract to a report, or group your devices based off it, and whatnot. Those things will get tricky. So often taking a feedback and kind of generalizing that problem, even before we get to the scale problem, is a thing. Yes, and scale is often unique, especially how tenants are distributed. Like we have smaller tenants, a lot of smaller tenants, or we have a large tenants, and doing something at large scale is often tricky. Uh, so you would think, okay, like a good example would be scanning all devices to do something on a small tenant. This is much more easier. You can um, y- your SLA or your latency would be much more faster. But doing it scale at a larger tenants is different, and doing at scale at multi-tenants, which is what our service is much more tricky. So to put it simply, yes, it's the how do you take that one feedback and kind of see if this is a common problem across, or what can be extracted as a common problem across, so that there is enough tools that's given, so that you can still or enough platform that's built, and you can kind of customize yourself for your needs, right? And that's exactly what I see the value in the community too. So we have built a product, and we put the product outside, and especially while you are in the middle, trying to bridge the gap, and kind of build additional solutions that are very specific to the customer. So
And I could also imagine like come into an event and then see, here's our product. See it, guys. Here it is. Here's the roadmap. Here's the finalized product. We listen to you guys, and it must give you a lot more motivation to like continue and getting some driven effort, and yeah, how do you call it? Yeah, motivation. I will just call it motivation.
100%. And
Yeah.
again, that's other thing. I so like I have friends and family kind of works at gaming and other consumer products, where everything is much more visible and evident,
Mm.
right? Like
Easy to relate to, and yeah.
yeah. When my wife goes to my kids' school, she works in gaming and Xbox,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
so it's
Awesome.
much more visible and tangible. So my kids never thought or never understood the work I did, or if the work was cool enough. So I always had this thing where, okay, what I'm doing is important but not cool. But what I took away from the
I think it's
from the
pretty cool.
like, wow, this is a great reception. So it definitely gives that extra boost. Um, it's like the podium ceremony for F1 drivers. It keeps you going for the next two races, right?
It's a really good answer because I did like that if you want to explain to people around you that you love and like, friends or family or wives and whatever, um, you bring them to those physical events and they actually see who's actually showing up to see you talk. It will make them like, okay, my dad or my husband is doing something really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, whatever I do, I don't think I'll be in the cool factor, especially the mom. My wife kind of wins that with my kids, but yes, I do was excited to see the reception, and that definitely gives us a boost to go back. I think we we also did we tend to do hack code just during the event itself, and one of the things teams did was they export and import of the configuration policies, right? And I think we even took the video and took it back to the team, and team was so motivated that that went into the product very, very quickly, right? Because that's something I know we always needed it, right? We didn't get a chance to do it, but like I said, it's often, sometimes we think, okay, this might be fairly straightforward. Like, you have a graph API, you can do it yourself, um, but the reception is what kind of tilted. It was like, oh, this is actually very significant for people, and and they tend to see the value in it. But yes, to answer your question, it definitely gives us extra motivation.
Yeah, and I also think that when you get feature requests from people and feedback which you like you just said, and the features you always get, you want to put them in the scale direction as well. So even
Right.
though the feedback could be awesome and stuff like that, and we all know we want the next big feature coming up. We like big features, we like next features and new features and stuff, but it takes time to fit it into a code that is needs to support such a big scale, and
Right.
it's
Right. Yeah, I think, and even in engineering itself, tend to spend much more time on the platform services, like whether it's string zero services, or um, like even when we had to build something like inventory or device query, a lot more focus would be on creating the platform first before the feature comes out, because it's very important to get those building blocks right. Because once you get it right, you can start iterating, um, right? And like how you collect data and how you collect the data at scale, making sure the consumer devices are healthy, but at the same time, how do you make sure that the data goes as quickly as something changes on the client. Okay, then you have this large sets of data. How do you process this at scale so that you can write queries over it to gain insights? These, as a problem statement, those are good, but you got to spend quite a bit time on building the fundamental blocks first. That's one of the reasons sometimes it takes time for the features to come out. But once you have the platform in place, you could see the progression. Like we did start quickly with sending out Windows inventory, and the cross-platform followed right after. And now we're trying to talk about or get the query out, where now you have collected all this. How do I run query to find out information across all my devices so that I can get more insights? So it's kind of like um, I compare with Lego building, right? Like you start with the building blocks.
good comparison. Good
It wouldn't
comparison.
look as cool in the beginning, but at some point we'll get there. So
Yeah.
So, what is the best feedback you've received from community members at events? Like, what is, if you have to think back, what is the best feedback? Like, what is something, I wouldn't call it rare, but something like the best feedback you've ever got from a community event? Is there something you can remember that,
Yeah, I mean, there are a few. I think, or I know you asked for one, but let me
Yeah, yeah,
again.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Hopefully, you're not bored to the death by end of the session. But no, I think the one of the things that kind of took me back is this is a very simple UX feedback, and I think this was something related to a filter where we had a fixed set of things, but even the rows beneath didn't have it. And the feedback really was, "Hey, you have rendered all the results." I think this was device blade, or I forgot which blade it was. Can 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 your filter not be contextualized with the data itself, right? Like if I have knobs where it's not even relevant. No, to me, and the reasoning is I come to this page quite often, and the way I work around is having multiple tabs to kind of like that's very simple. Like to you, that's a very small fix that you could do, and you probably punt because okay, maybe this bug wasn't as important, let's say, than the security the bug that we are working with. But then I realized okay, everything is important because somebody this is countless time and effort, right? So that was a very I go back to that example because I did not expect that perspective change that kind of made that switch. It's like, okay, not there is nothing not trivial, right? Like everything is important. You got to think from an ID admin shoes or a customer shoes on how we are doing it. More fun one was I did not expect reception for the NDC or NPC as it was, right? Like yes, we have uh, modernized some of the management stack, and it's definitely much more faster um, and definitely much more secure. But I thought, okay, who would look at the back end? Like it's not a feature. Yes, EPM is built on it, and inventory is built on it, and a few other things. But like and I know other platforms are also kind of moving to that model. So I know this exists in the industry. I just didn't expect the reception it got, where people have not only know about it, they would come and ask question you about it was a surprising and yet rewarding experience because you think this work is not discoverable, but yet I'm always surprised how much how much things are reverse engineered. So that is definitely fun, and I think we did touch upon the biggest one is the demos, especially ones that's coming, and you especially different demos get different reception. The most rewarding would be just finishing the cycle, taking that feedback from this year, kind of showing the next year, it's kind of seeing the reception. But yes, I know I didn't give you one answer, but these are the
Yeah,
three
yeah,
that.
but it's good. I mean, I, I think one of our former guests in the podcast, Rudy. I think you are in touch with him nearly every day, right? About something interview related as well. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I think one of his types is also like really good for you in order to give you feedback in order on features or errors or whatever on different things. It must be overwhelming as a Microsoft employee or people that has created a product that people want to dedicate so much time in order to help you fix and maybe see some errors or, or things out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I do get thanks from Rudy and those and few others, right? Like I like said, the MVP community is pretty strong. Um, I wouldn't use the word overwhelming for sure, but yes, this, like I said, the perspective definitely changes once you realize we are all trying to do the same thing, right? Like we are all trying to make um, productivity better for the customers and make sure that we give the right solutions to make sure their devices are much more secure and um, so once you put that in mind and put that hat in mind, it's often fun. Like I said, I think there were at least three or four critical issues that we found by this collaboration, and this is something we tend to do even with the customers in our preview features. That we work much closely with that, um, so that, like I said, you kind of think in a certain way and design the feature much more generically once you kind of instantiate it for that particular customer, you realize, oh, maybe we missed that, or okay, that's a good use case. But yes, Rudy does cause enough trouble. But I do appreciate what he and obviously the rest of the folks do for the community.
So, Jonas, I think we've covered community events. So, a little bit on your technical insights, because you are a developer and you can talk about the technical things. So, I think we need to cover this side of things as well. So, Ignite was a little bit too long ago now, but what was the announcement that you were most proud of at Ignite, if you should say?
Yeah, the most recent one is probably definitely inventory and multi-device query, right? Like the free. So those two kind of stands out. Obviously, we did talk, and we have no, and this is something I've realized that people notice too, where we invest heavily on improving the core platforms and infrastructure, and this kind of translates to how quickly your device is getting remediated and whatnot. So these kind of three are something got me excited for Ignite, and inventory is out, and device query will follow. So I'm fairly excited to see how customers are going to use it and kind of take that back in the feedback loop and iterate. Also excited with the Copilot stuff that's happening, and the AI era is a big wave, and can't wait to see how that will all pan out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a interesting future ahead of us, because all of us have to acknowledge that AI is gonna be here and it's gonna stay here. It's gonna evolve and it's gonna be better and bigger and smarter, and yeah, we're just gonna
Yeah,
accept it. And I know it's hard for I know we're not gonna touch it too much, but I know it's hard for people that been working with IT and logical thinking, have to go in and now take the trust they have in logical stuff now into like a some more cognitive brain, more thinking, more softer, instead of just no A and B, because now you have to leave that a little bit to the other brains. That makes sense.
yeah. I mean, definitely, it's a shift in how we think, right? Like it's not a small paradigm shift, but for me, it's all about boosting productivity, right? I could see that vividly in my day to day, right? Like I spend quite a bit of time working with a lot of teams around, and which translates to a lot of meeting times. And I technically can't make all the meetings all the time, but the fact that you could join a meeting in 10 minutes, you can figure out without disturbing what's going on with
Yeah.
Copilot on the side and be instantly productive is mind blowing, right? Like, and I can totally see applications in our space. So can't wait to see how that'll all evolve.
Yeah, the summary feature of like you just said, that of Outlook events and Teams event is just phenomenal. Also, like when you go into Outlook and like make an email, you want to be more formalized, you want to be more casual, because us IT people, I can just speak for my own, not for everyone. Other IT people, we can be a little bit direct in our wording sometimes.
Or I think
See,
Doesn't help me a lot.
I think casual is the wrong is the right word.
yeah, no, it's for me. Yeah, it helps, right? Especially English wasn't my first language, even though I did my school in English. It's just so it helps that it always helps to have that extra set of eyes from that perspective. But yeah.
Oh yeah, grammar checking all my blogs and grammar checking all my emails sometimes when I do it in English. I can just be honest here. I do that.
Yeah.
This is a safe space. No one is going to hear that anyway. I also do it in my coding, actually, when I do coding PowerShell. I
Yeah,
also do.
it's very powerful. Like it's your buddy, right? Like it's yeah. And I remember doing paid programming back in the day in school, trying to get your assignment done. That's exactly how I feel when I'm with Copilot. So
I do subnetting by hand back in the days when I was in school. Yeah, networking. Yeah. It's a helping hand, and it's gonna evolve us all if we just accept it. So I think we're gonna. Did we talk a little bit about device preparation policies? Because I just like the way of, like you talked about device inventory, you build the architecture behind it in the back with the team you have, of course. Credit to them as well. You know, no one is one army in this. But I
100%.
saw I saw one of the things with the device preparation, that the architecture behind it was updated, because it's not just a no embedded feature into the existing autopilot code. It's something that's been built from the scratch up, and now gonna give that more scalability, and, like, the architecture is updated, so it's gonna be a lot more, you know, what do you call it, more robust. Is that the word?
Yeah, definitely. There are a few aspects to it, and let's see how if we can put that. Um, yeah, one of the things historically we had is the registration thing where you got to go upload your harvested devices, and one of the things that gave is kind of concept called pre-creation, where you kind of have this record created so that you can target policies much front, right? But it also had other problems. So in the new versions, the dependency on the registration is gone, but we did want to solve how do we still deliver the payloads pretty quickly? How do we pre-compute everything much more quickly? So the thing that kind of happens behind the scenes is enrollment time grouping. You probably heard this word, right? Like where you can still target your policies and whatnot even before the device comes in. So there is a concept called like a virtual group that gets created behind the scenes. So your payloads are all pre-computed, whether it's your apps, policies, and whatnot. So by the time when the device goes through this autopilot, we know where this device needs to go be placed, not only in that enter group, but you have all this pre-created, right? So that kind of eliminates this, okay, the moving problem. Like imagine without that, right? Like device comes in, and if you have any device targeting, there is a latency involved, right? Like you get the user payloads very quickly, but not the device. In this concept, that kind of goes away, and you have all access to all the payloads, so you can better orchestrate your payloads, better track your payloads, and whatnot, right? So yes, that's indirectly how you're, or one of the pieces that will assist in making it much more robust and making it faster. And I think there is also a concept of, okay, um, what is critical is what you need to target and track right away, but it doesn't mean you get to your desktop and but there is still something happening afterwards, right? So device provisioning is not this gigantic, okay, I'm going to track this everything that happens on the device, and if it fails, it will be very hard to recover, to much more reliable, robust. You take care of what you need to give right away and get to improve the productivity of the end user too, right? Like they're getting to the desktop much more faster, but we'll still make sure everything else is rightfully provisioned and devices compliant before they can use.
Yeah, and I do like the whole kind of, topic of it, category scale, and, speed. Speed is probably the biggest thing for people out here, and also, yeah, like you also confirmed the robustness of it, like less errors, less failures. And I cannot help talking about a little bit about, because I just read the documentation about this. I see that this is probably a funny question, but do Microsoft still recommend Win32 apps for device preparation? I
That's a
think
very good
I,
question.
I think they do. They do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do see that's the, yeah, but you do what you have to do, right? Like apps is always interesting, even in the native cloud journey, right? Like you, it is your need and your footprint, right? Like Sidecar does very well, or IME on what it's called outside, and managing those apps. So I think so. Um, but yes, to read the blogs, or I need to check my homework if that is
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I just saw it. It's a bit of
Yeah,
a
it should.
bad thing for me to do, but I just saw it in the Learn page that we still recommend Win32 apps, and I just can't help to think that, like, for I know 5 years ago I talked about MSIX, but I know it's a big vendor thing, and people
Uh,
adopting that packaging, and, yeah,
yeah,
it's gotta take time, and it's easy just to wrap it inside of Win32 apps. It was just a funny little question I had there. So you talked about the, hybrid environments, the cloud to the journey, cloud native. Okay, so we have one more question. I think we also have some few Q&As, but this one we've been a little bit looking forward to. What is your thoughts about going cloud native? Because my own personal preference is to leave back some of the footprint and be
Mhm.
easier to manage with Intune and have a one pane of glass. So you can always have config manager put up with your Intune management and have, one pane of glass with management of your devices. What is your thoughts about going cloud native? That was my question.
Yeah, I mean, this has always been the idea. Like all the steps we have taken in between is to accelerate the journey to here, right? Like you called out, you're not just leaving footprint, right? You're kind of reducing the total cost of ownership, right? From your perspective, less things to worry about, and focus more on your devices and management and productivity of the devices rather than everything else. Because once you put it to the cloud, whether it's security, or worrying about the complexity becomes our problem, then uh, I mean, of course, like it's so that in itself is a good motivation to kind of do it. Not just that, uh, even the technologies have evolved much more, right? Like previously, you could say, okay, it's missing a good one. Inventory was one thing I've heard for a long time that we didn't have one, right? Like not just that, right? Like the tools you have, the analysis on the data, and then that's going to happen because I think the next era and the thing I spend most of my time currently is on data platform, right? Like so once it goes to cloud, everything kind of turns into our responsibility. Uh, being said that, everybody is in a different part of journey. I'm hoping almost everybody in the new device fleet is using autopilot and cloud native, right? And you kind of use that as a stepping stone to make sure your all workloads are cloud friendly, right? Like you get to update your policies, getting rid of GPUs. I've seen a lot of customers that, okay, I did not know what this GPU does because it was like years of debt. Like it's like your garage when you keep it unchecked, you don't know what's kind of going on. So making sure that you have your compliance policies set up, or update is a good one to start with. Um, but just kind of pulling the plug and going much more aggressive is a pretty good strategy, and using your new device fleet to get there is one way to do it, right? Apps is the most tricky one because you might still have app with a 80 footprint or auth. So I understand it's different for different organizations.
Okay, and Niklas, do you have a question for Venkata?
I think I have more some soft questions that we always ask our guest in the podcast. So, what is the best advice, Venkata, you can give to young people getting into IT? Like, if you should think about one thing, I know it's hard. The best advice.
I mean, one thing, I mean, might sound like a cliche, but um, if that's your passion, I think that's a fantastic space to be in. And the advice would definitely be um, connections, right? And listening and also reciprocating back, right? Like share, right? That means both trying to build the connection, trying to understand the space, and trying to understand the problems and how do I solve the problems. Um, for me, it always helped to build labs, right? Even when we were coding, the best way to understand how things are working is obviously you start in the coding space, just playing with your code, right? Equally playing with your product, right? Like I've taken one of the learnings was like once you use the product, then you understand the pain points and you kind of adjust and improve. So the advice will always be try it.
Find a problem to solve, right? That I mean that's the best way to learn things like in IT as well.
Yeah, I think also person for me is like having a scenario, like or a
Yeah,
problem. Yeah, a scenario to have to solve and use different products. like back to your building the Lego, so you know how it's going to be like, should look like, and you have these building blocks, and you can do the same with IT. And at some point, you end up
Right.
a good place.
A good thing is this space has a lot of history and knowledge out there, right? Like it's not just, of course, it's with people and connections, but there is too much material to read. I love some of the books our PMs wrote and few other partners wrote on Intune. Love the blogs. What's new in Intune is always my go-to, even though I'm in Intune, just to see, okay, what's going on out there. Um, so lots of resources. So having those access and working on it is the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I can always say also say that Per Larsen, also from Microsoft, have been my mentor back in the days. I learned a lot of him.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
from him. Yeah,
Nice. And he has a book
he
too, right?
did. Yeah, he did. Yeah. Okay. One last question, Nicholas.
Yeah, so I think you covered it pretty well, but the best advice that you can give to people that wants to participate in conferences like Workplace Ninja, MMS. I know you started kind of different angle with working from Microsoft, but can you give some good advice to people that want to participate in those events? Like, what is the best thing they can do?
Um, I mean, find opportunities. Like if there is any chance to actually be in person with the events, that's the way to do it. And I think building the connections is the best outcome that you can take away from these events, because these events happen for like 3 to 4 days or 5 days, right? Like those are much more valuable, where a lot of information is going through the events. Um, but taking the connections and staying connected to the community even after the events is the way to do it. Um,
Okay.
and like I said, the number of blogs that comes out of all of you is always fascinating, and information is the key. So
Good answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so Venkata, it's been a pleasure to have you here. You said a lot of very good things. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
no, pleasure has been mine. So I appreciate having me here. Always exciting to talk about the things I love, and one of them is my work. So
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank you
Thank
it.
very
you.
much for joining us.